Welcome to this presentation on marketing success for executive protection agents. Before I get into the content of the presentation, I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that I was thinking about after I finished developing this presentation. You see, a lot of people, when they think about marketing, they think about advertising or social media. And in the context of executive protection agents, often social media comes to mind as the most significant component of marketing to lead towards success. The reality is, long before there was the internet, long before there was social media, executive protection and close protection professionals were achieving success. And the way they achieved success was through many of the things that I'm going to discuss in this presentation. So, this presentation is going to help you take fundamental concepts of marketing that have been around for many years inside the protection industry and outside and add in and leverage the potential available from the internet and social media. So please keep that in mind as we go through this presentation. And I'd also like to suggest that because of these fundamentals that we're going to talk about, and because of the exposure that I've had both in the private and public sector, that the fundamentals we're going to learn today apply across every aspect of the industry, whether you're an independent contractor, you work for a corporate executive firm, a celebrity, or if you are a government employee or a member of the military that does close protection or executive protection. So the content is extremely fundamental, is extremely useful across a very wide spectrum if you apply it appropriately. So a lot of executive protection professionals are trying to build a brand and market themselves. And I've seen it a lot with a lot of folks that are working really hard to try and get success through a variety of different methods. Unfortunately, many are doing it the wrong way or overcomplicating the process. And the wrong approach can have a significant impact on results. So we're going to talk a little bit in this presentation about the wrong approach, some critical errors that I've seen out there. And because I like to get the negative out of the way first, we're going to focus the majority of the rest of the presentation on positive aspects that can help you use some fundamental marketing concepts to have a much more lucrative career as an executive protection agent or a close protection agent. So the intent of this presentation is to provide useful solutions for personnel for personal and professional marketing. I want to be able to simplify the success process for you and help you be more successful. Now, it's important to note that I've got a course on the specvip.ca website called Executive and Close Protection Career Success. This program would supplement that course very well. The objectives of this program, so by the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to describe branding and marketing in relation to executive protection. You're going to be able to identify and avoid some critical errors. And you're going to be able to apply simple solutions for success in executive protection. So let's talk a little bit about branding and marketing. And branding and marketing might not necessarily be what you might be thinking about. I'm going to give you a couple of concepts related to branding and marketing that's hopefully going to help you reframe how you think about your own personal brand and how you market yourself. So let's take a look at that. So branding is who you are. Branding is the core of your being. Branding is your values, your character, your abilities, your skills, all of the things that make you an effective executive protection agent is your branding. Marketing, on the other hand, is what others see about the brand. So when you think about it, if you look at the picture on the right of, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola is probably one of the most iconic brands around the world. But the brand isn't what you see. The marketing is what you see. The, red and white colors, that's marketing. The logo, the, Coca-Cola name, that is what you see. That is the marketing. Now, Coca-Cola uses a variety of different techniques to market their brand, you know, product placement, commercials, social media, all of those types of things. Those are marketing. And the logo itself, when it was first designed, was a marketing task to best represent the brand. At the core of Coca-Cola, who they are is those things that represent Coca-Cola, the core of Coca-Cola. So things like the taste, right? How it tastes, what the quality is of the liquid, how satisfying it is, how refreshing it is, any memories associated with, the feeling that you get when you taste Coca-Cola and the things you were doing maybe when you first experienced it or earlier on in your life. All of those things are elements of the Coca-Cola brand. What Coca-Cola does is they market the brand with a variety of different techniques that they use to make sales. And it's also safety. So at the end of the day, people buy Coca-Cola for a variety of different reasons. I would suggest the most important one, or the one that people most resonate with, is the taste, right? If you're a Pepsi drinker or you're a Coke drinker, the the most defining difference is the taste. Everything else is basically the same. And both of those brands have a long-standing reputation of being safe to consume. So this is something that I think we need to reframe as protection professionals. Is we often lead with safety, we lead with security, but safety and security are the mechanism in our industry, but the brand is who we are. The brand is how essentially we taste to other people, all the quality things about us. And then marketing is what other people see. Now, your reputation, on the other hand, is how your brand is perceived and felt by others. And then at the end of the day, if you've got a brand that resonates with people and they see it through marketing and it stands up to a high quality reputation, then you're going to get sales. For us as executive protection agents, sales might be work. Sales might be opportunities. However you define your position and success in that position, that is the outcome, that is the sales. Now, here's something else that we should think about when we're looking at branding and marketing. And I'd like you to have a look at this Venn diagram that's basically about being paid for a purpose. So, we've got 4 different circles. And when all 4 of these circles interconnect, we end up with a situation where we will become paid for what we are doing. So on one side of things, probably the most important one on the right is what people need. People will only buy what they need or buy what they want or what they think they need. If you can do that, then people are going to be more likely to buy it, especially if you can do it at a very high level with a very strong reputation that exceeds the reputation of others or has other things like convenience or price or what have you connected to what people need. And unfortunately, that price in the protection industry often becomes what people focus on. But I don't think that is the best thing that we should focus on. So you've got something that you can do. People have something that they want. When you put those together, if it's something that people will pay for, we have a recipe for success. But anybody can do all of that. And executive protection in particular isn't a very easy job. It's not a simple process to get into. It's a very demanding job. It's a very difficult job. So the one thing that's going to help carry you through those difficult times, help you succeed, and also help give you an edge over the competition and help you stand out to clients is that passion. Okay. So if you have passion for protection and you can do it, and other people in your market are able or need it and are willing to pay for it, then you end up being the superstar in the middle. When all those four circles intersect, you end up with a recipe for success. And that's what we hope to accomplish with this presentation. How can you, stand out from everybody else in your local market where people will be able to recognize that you can do what you do, that they need it, and are willing to pay for it. So the first thing we're going to look at is going into the negative a little bit. We're going to look at avoiding some critical errors. And unfortunately, there's a lot of critical errors in this field that can be career ending. I've seen it many, many times that good people with great skills make one or two critical errors and they find themselves no longer getting any work. Nobody is calling them anymore. So please pay very close attention to these critical errors, and we will circle back to them a couple times throughout the presentation as well. So the first ones are behavior errors in executive protection. This is generally anything that's inappropriate conduct, inappropriate attire, or inappropriate presentation overall. Maybe it's poor communication. This is something that I think a lot of protectors need to work on. They need to work on their communication, both verbal and written. Every time you write an email, every time you write a text message, every time you put a post on the internet or do an advance report or a site survey or even just doing invoicing if you're doing your own invoicing. All of that is written communication and it does represent you. If you do it well, it represents you well. But what I see more often, both on the written and the verbal side, is poor communication. Also see a lot of significant challenges related to people with poor values, poor ethics, and poor decision making. That might not seem like a big deal, but values and ethics, if those are poor, they are going to impact your decision making, and that is going to leak into everything else you do, which will have a negative impact on your ability to market yourself. It will negatively impact your brand, and ultimately, it's going to negatively impact your success potential. Lack of emotional intelligence is also something that is significant in our industry across the entire spectrum. I highly recommend, if you haven't done some research or training into emotional intelligence, that that you look into it and you learn as much about it as possible. Okay. And also a lack of subtlety and discretion. These are critical. All of these things on here are critical behaviors that will impact your success potential and your ability to market your brand. Operational errors are also, unfortunately, very common in the executive protection industry. One of the biggest ones that I see is a failure or inadequate advances, planning, and preparation. The success of an executive protection deployment rests not just on the members, but their ability to do, thorough and complete advances, putting plans together and doing the appropriate prep work. That doesn't mean things can't change. You need to be adaptable, and that's where other things like emotional intelligence and decision making and all of that come into play. But at the end of the day, having some kind of plan is going to be critical. You also have to make sure that you don't overestimate or underestimate the threat. The threat gets a vote in everything we do. And if you don't allow that vote to occur and you don't factor it into your operation, then you're likely going to be caught off guard and not able to appropriately avoid the threat or even mitigate it. Driving is so common in executive protection that it has also a critical error component to it. Maybe you're going too slow for the situation, too slow for the VIP. Maybe you're going too fast. Maybe you took the wrong route. Some of these are connected to each other. If you took the wrong route because you didn't do your proper advances and planning, that could have a significant negative impact on your career. Maybe it's your positioning or your proximity to your VIP. Are you too close? Are you too far? Is it because of how they feel? Is it because how much they trust you? Or is it based on the threat, based on the environment, based on the situation? So you need to be able to have enough knowledge, training, experience, and emotional intelligence to be able to read the situation and in every situation determine how close you need to be. And then all the basics about, like being just a good employee somewhere, right? Your punctuality, whether or not you're sleeping on the job. Goodness, do not do that. Don't sleep on the job. Don't be drinking. Don't be, intoxicated of any kind. Like those operational and behavioral impacts are critical. And if you can't get that right, then everything else that I'm going to talk about in this presentation actually really doesn't matter. Okay. And then the social component, right? Being on social media is important, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. But using social media to your advantage can absolutely have some critical errors if you don't do it right. Things I've seen people do is posting operational pictures. Even if you're advancing, people know who you are, they know what you do. They see you in another country. You're likely, unless you're on a personal vacation and post that, people will know that you're advancing another country. Also, posting pictures with the VIPs things, right? Pictures with their cars, pictures with their jets, pictures at their mansion, pictures with the VIP. Oh my goodness. Don't do any of that, okay? You take those pictures, you put them on the internet, it's going to ruin your reputation. It is not good marketing, despite what so many people think out there. Poaching clients. You're working for somebody else, you're working on their dime, and you start handing out your business card or telling the clients that they should hire you next time, or giving them even just your contact information, say, hey, you can save a buck by calling me directly. Like, don't do that. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Okay. If you're working on somebody else's contract, you are working for them. You represent them. If they find out, which they will, that you've done that, you'll never get another job from that person. They will tell other people, your reputation will be ruined within those networks. And yeah, you might have got one client out of that, but you want, like, success is about longevity. Success is about repeating the formula over and over and over again. So don't be poaching clients from other people. Airing your dirty laundry publicly is another, it's a really negative aspect of the industry. You see it a lot on social media. You see it a lot, when guys are doing halls and walls and they're talking to each other and they're like, oh, yeah, this company sucks. And yeah, it's okay to give a heads up about a company to be, concerned about. But the more publicly you air that dirty laundry, the more it impacts you as well and your reputation. So I would shy away from doing that. Same thing with being negative. Like negativity in general just breeds more negativity. So if you are on social media or in social circles and you're constantly negative, nobody wants to be around a negative person. I know I certainly don't. I have been a negative person in the past, and somebody told me that. They said, if you don't like it here, you should probably just quit. Nobody is forcing you to be here. And I was like, whoa, wake up call. I'm actually not that. I actually really like my job. Am I coming off as negative? Well, in our little culture, it was culturally appropriate to complain about everything, and I jumped on that. As a young private in the army, that seemed like a cool thing to do. Well, I'm much older now. I'm much more mature. I've learned a lot. I can tell you right now that negativity is not a great place to lead with. Okay, it's not great to your reputation. It's not great for marketing. Same thing with talking about some sensitive topics, especially openly on social media, right? Things like politics, religion, COVID, anything of that nature, when you start, they're pretty polarizing. And if you're on the opposite side of the polar spectrum from a client and they see that, then they're not necessarily going to trust you and they're going to be less likely to hire you. Executive protection agents should take a neutral stance publicly. That doesn't mean that you're not able to believe what you believe, support what you want to support, and have conversations around certain things in your close circle. But sharing that information publicly is not good to your reputation. It's not good for your career. Definitely doesn't help you market your brand. And at the end of the day, our whole business is about confidentiality. So when you breach that, that's a career ender. Whether you signed a non-disclosure agreement or not, confidentiality, subtlety, discretion is all a part of our industry. So you don't need to sign a piece of paper to know that you're not supposed to share confidential information, personal information that you hear in the vehicle, personal information that you are sent, through an itinerary or something like that, personal information that you hear when you're standing next to your VIP. If you breach that, you're going to get a reputation for somebody that breaches confidentiality. So, not something that's really good if you're trying to build a brand and market yourself. And at the end of the day, whether you do these things or not, if people have perceived that you've done them, if you've put photos out there that have suggested that lead people to think that they're VIP photos, client photos, operational photos, if people have suggested or perceived that you have poached their clients, whether you did or not, it is reality in the social circle. So, all of these errors, whether they be behavioral, operational, or within public or private social groups, you need to avoid as much as possible. Now, as we go through this presentation, don't be afraid to come back to this. Or as you go through life, you can watch this more than once to make sure that you don't breach these common errors. So now we're going to move forward away from the negativity, away from the mistakes, and we're going to focus on being better, being the best that we can. What a great word to suggest that. Excellence. Excellence is marketing. The knowledge, skills, abilities, experience that you bring to the table is your level of excellence. Today, you should be better than you were yesterday. This year, you should be better than you were last year. You should be continuously striving to improve and always working towards achieving a higher level of excellence. This is how I've lived my life. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But excellence is the best brand that you can have and the best way to market yourself. Just be the best version of yourself every day, and tomorrow's version of you better be better than today's version of you. So when we talk about excellence, we always want to make sure that we are focused on excellence first and always. So when you're out there doing executive protection stuff, living your life, and you're making decisions, micro decisions about how much work you're going to do on an advance, how much pre-advance research you're going to do, what you're going to wear, how you're going to drive, where you're going to stand, all of those decisions, excellence first and always. That is your objective. Now, we need excellence to be measured in a couple of different ways. We need, first of all, this subjective excellence. I have to believe that I'm excellent, because if I don't, I'm not going to have the confidence to do the job. I don't want to be overconfident or cocky, but at some point in time, to be an executive protection agent, you have to have the internal belief that you're good enough to do this job. So you've got to be able to have this subjective, first and always excellence component. But guess what? You don't hire yourself. Other people hire you. Whether it's directly through a client or a subcontract, or you're getting a job in the government sector or corporate sector, other people hire you. So your excellence has to be objective. It has to be perceived by others to be excellent, not just you. And in the middle of all of this, we have the Dunning-Kruger effect and imposter syndrome. Two things that get in the way of subjective and objective excellence. The Dunning-Kruger effect was a research study done by the German researchers Dunning and Kruger back in the 60s on perception versus reality as it opposed to skills. And what they realized was the lower the skill that somebody had, the higher the inflated perception of capability they had. So the worse somebody is, the more they likely perceive themselves to be better than what they are. On the flip side of that, as part of the study and through other research, imposter syndrome comes out. People that just don't think they're good enough, despite having very significant levels of knowledge, very significant skill levels, and a significant amount of experience that is useful in the executive protection world. So, when you are thinking about excellence, think about that in a first and always concept. And then layer in Dunning-Kruger and imposter syndrome. And somewhere in between, I hope you find yourself. When you go to training courses, think about where you are in comparison to other people on those training courses. When you go on operations, think about where you are in comparison to other people. Don't overinflate yourself. Don't give yourself a big ego, okay? If other people aren't doing as well as you in certain areas, maybe they just haven't learned that yet. That's fantastic to learn something new on a training course. Otherwise, why are you there? But you can measure yourself against yourself on those training courses, and you can measure yourself against others on the training course. And then the really important piece of that is after you're done, some self-reflection. And that doesn't just apply to training. That applies to operations as well. Every time you go on an operation, you should be measuring yourself against yourself and measuring yourself against others. Have you improved? Are you measuring up to the other people next to you? Are you exceeding them? Can you improve even more? Always lead with excellence. It is the most important component to your professional brand, your professional marketing, and your professional success. If you are not excellent at the job, why would anybody hire you to protect their most valuable assets? The next component to marketing fundamentals in executive protection that we need to be aware of is relationships. Our ability to connect with other people is critical. While it's so important to be excellent, if nobody knows about it and you aren't connected to anybody else, how do you truly know that you're excellent? So, the most important thing after excellence to focus on is building relationships, finding people that are like minded people, but also finding people that maybe are better than you. So you can have some mentoring and coaching and learn from their excellence while building yourself up. Now, you might think, okay, Justin, we're talking about marketing. How are we talking about relationships when we're talking about marketing? Well, I can tell you that I've spent a significant amount of time in this industry, and I've done a lot of advertising. I've done a lot of social media marketing. I've done blogs. I've put videos out there. I've paid for advertisements. I'm very active on social media. And I can say that all the work that I've gotten, not just in executive protection, but in my entire career, has not come from those superficial elements, like the Facebook ads or LinkedIn posts or anything like that. It came from relationships. When I trace back and I do an audit of all the work that I've gotten and all the customers I've had, both in my training world and my operational world, it all boils down to relationships. And the more you work together, the more you work with each other, the more gross success potential there's going to be. So I put the saying there up on the screen, a rising tide lifts all ships while at sea. We are all in this industry together. There is enough work to go around for everybody if we work together, if we lift each other up while we are building our brand and marketing ourselves. So relationships are key. That networking component is critical to your success, but not like going to the conference or going to a course and just meeting somebody, but genuine networks, genuine relationships with trusted contacts. Somebody you've got in your phone that you could pick up and call and have a conversation with them and not have to explain to them who you are or what you're all about. The more you connect with people, the more you find yourself in the same place with people on a regular basis, the stronger the relationship is going to be, the more they're going to know about you and you about them. And hopefully, you're both excellent, subjectively and objectively, and will be able to feed off of each other in a good way. Because you get the opposite of that, right? You put a couple like-minded people together in an echo chamber and they feed off of each other. Well, if it's an excellence echo chamber, that's a good thing. You still got to go outside of that to learn more. If it's a negative echo chamber, that's a bad thing. So, when you're building your network, when you are making and forging relationships, make sure you choose and showcase those relationships wisely. Because you might be excellent and you might have this great friend, but your great friend is an absolute hand grenade. Maybe they suck at what they do, or maybe they're great at what they do, but they got no communication skills, or they're super negative all over the internet. Well, guess what? Anybody who knows you is going to know you to be guilty by association. And networks and relationships are not about volume. To an extent, they are. You need a few of them, but when we're talking about success from the marketing component of executive protection, we're focusing on quality over quantity. I would much rather have a dozen or 20 strong connections than 100,000 followers. Because guess what? Those followers, for the most part, when you dive into influencer research, they're mostly superficial. In fact, many a times they're quite fake. So I would much rather have a small group of folks, even if it's 5 or 6 people that I trust, that I can learn from, that they can learn from me, that we can work together with. Maybe they have 5 or 6 people in their network and I'm one of them, and the other 5, I don't know. So now I'm connected to their network and their network is the same thing. So we multiply our exposure, not through social media, not through, superficial methods, but through trusted relationships. Now, to get there, it's work, right? You got to put some deliberate effort in. You got to go to training courses. You have to go to the conferences. You got to go to the networking events. And then you actually have to, and you go on operations. When you get the work and you're working with people, guess what? What better way to build relationships of like-minded professionals than work with them? Then you have to have conversations. Those conversations should be, somewhat formal, but also informal, focused on improvement, focused on getting to know each other. All of that takes effort. And if you're an introvert like me, that's not an easy thing to do sometimes. But because I know how valuable it is, and also because when I do it, I actually enjoy it, it becomes a lot less effort. And you got to diversify. You got to put yourself in other networks. Okay. We're not focusing on mass quantity, but it does help to have multiple networks, both within the industry and outside of the industry as well. Being outside the industry is great for learning new things, for your own mental health, and also for a little bit of, you know, check and balance with the industry and the client group. And one of the things that I like to do when I am, uh, maintaining my network and looking to provide value to them, or learn from them, is I make direct contact. So you see a lot of folks, they go on social media and they put posts out there, and that's fantastic. But it's not as impactful as making direct contact with a network. Pick up the phone and call someone and see how they're doing. Run a question by them. Run an opportunity by them. Maybe you text them. Maybe you direct message them on LinkedIn. Maybe instead of sharing an article on LinkedIn, you share it with key people in your direct network to make sure that they get it, but also let them know that you're there, that you still exist, and that you're thinking about them, and that you thought this was valuable. That is way more deliberate effort and focused on building a quality relationship than superficially posting all over the internet. Just make sure that your network is solid. You need to be with the right people in the right places, talking about the right topics, and some of it boils down to a little bit of the right timing. Okay? Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I'd like to be both. So, you can adjust that timing, or dictate that timing by knowing where the right people are going to be in the right places, where the right topics are focused on your success path, by going to meetups and events and networking events and, conferences. Especially industry conferences are a fantastic way to meet all of those things. But even at the conferences, there's so many people. How do you find the right people? Well, you talk to people. You know what your goals are, and you ask them questions, and you interact, and you build relationships. And then maybe somebody's not a good fit. That's okay. Meet somebody else. Talk to them. Ask them questions. Build a relationship. Hey, they're a great fit. Hey, they ask you about something and you don't have the answer, but that last person you talk to just does. Relationships are key. So when we talk about networking, a lot of people think about it as the superficial component. Going to a networking event and meeting people and handing out business cards and resumes and blah, 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 blah. That's all. Nobody remembers that. But they remember when you text them directly and have a meaningful conversation, something that's meaningful to you and something that's meaningful to them. And then when your business interests align, your work interests align, you already know each other and you don't have to build that relationship. So work to build relationships, go beyond the superficial elements and get to know people. And I'm going to tell you what, even if it's your competition, okay? I talk to other trainers all the time. We share tips and things like that. In fact, there's a bunch of us that run, executive protection, close protection training. And you know what we do? We don't compete with each other. We support each other. If one person's running a course, we go and help them. We feed customers towards them. When the other person is, we do it back in exchange. We don't throw mud at them and say they, suck or anything like that. We build each other up. We collaborate over competition. And when I've seen that occur with professionals with quality relationships, I've seen exponential growth, both on the training side that I focus primarily in now and on the operational side. All of the clients that I support, all of the executive protection agents that I support, they work collaboratively across our country, but throughout other countries as well. And for the most part, they don't compete with each other. In fact, the ones that compete with each other are the ones that have poached others' business. They don't get calls anymore. So focus on the relationship. Now, something that helps is proximity. The closer you are to somebody, the easier it's going to be to forge that relationship. So your local advantage is the like-minded professionals in your local environment. Your local environment might be very large, your local area, depending on your operational environment and your proximity to protectors in that area. At the end of the day, though, it's going to be easier to forge a relationship with somebody standing next to you than somebody on the other side of the world. Doesn't mean it's not possible. I have lots of contacts throughout the United States, United Kingdom, Europe, Australia. We have great relationships. We work very well together. But at the end of the day, I know way more about the people I am nearest to. So add that component to your thought process and your decision making and your efforts around forging relationships. So the next thing we need to talk about is that trusted reputation. I talked about it before. We're going to talk about it again because your trusted reputation is absolutely critical to your success in executive protection. Trust takes time to build and a moment to destroy. So clients must trust their protectors. And if you're working with other protectors, partner, teams, partner agencies, other individuals, you also must trust each other. We just talked about relationships. Trusting each other is critical to that relationship. If I am going to hand off business or add a member of, a member to my team to protect a client of some kind, I need to trust that anybody that's going to be around my sphere on the operation is capable on multiple levels. They have to have all the knowledge, all the skills and abilities, essentially the excellence needed, plus have a trusted reputation. So you need to work towards building trusted reputations with the network you find yourself in and the relationships you're building. Because your reputation is connected to other people's reputations. So if I bring somebody on a job or I comment about somebody on social media, as soon as we make that connection, as soon as I do that, we are connected. Now, it might come up that you have an opportunity to make some money at the expense of somebody else. We talked about poaching clients earlier. I can honestly say that every time I've seen somebody put revenue over reputation and relationships, it has gone poorly. But every time somebody has put reputation over revenue and focused on that relationship, it's gone well. Did the individuals involved maybe not make as much as money in the moment? Potentially, if they've spread the wealth, depending on the contract. Okay. But down the road, it paid dividends. On the flip side of that, I've seen somebody not make appropriate decisions in more than one occasion where they focused their decision making on the revenue as opposed to the reputation. And they got an okay payday, but they didn't get any more paydays after that. So, if you want long-term growth, long-term relationships, you need to prioritize reputation over revenue. So the next key to provide or to marketing and developing your brand and getting it out there, fits with all these other things we've talked about so far, and that is providing value. I hope that you find value out of this training program. I hope you find value out of all my other training programs and my consulting. Anytime I go at a project, I look to do not just be excellent, but give some substance, provide something of value to somebody else. Essentially, when we're providing value, we are helping people solve their problems. In the training world, I solve a lot of problems with skills and advice, capabilities that people walk away from with. Executive protection value is focusing on the client's needs. Help the client achieve their goals. In fact, lead with that in your conversations, lead with that in your public facing marketing. What are their goals? It depends on what the business is that they're in, right? Every client is pretty much a business. I don't care if you're an entertainer, a celebrity, an athlete, a corporate executive, even a politician or a public official of some kind. All of that is they're in the business of something. If you understand there's something and lead with it and can help them achieve their goals, you will be providing value. Things that are common across the executive protection landscape, things like efficiency, effectiveness, productivity, all of those things are ways that you can provide value. Focus on the VIP living their life and you being as unobtrusive as possible. But remember, protection is the mechanism, not the outcome, from the client's perspective. And if it's from your perspective, then you're going to be able to get way more clients. So, yes, we want our clients to be safe. We want them to be secure. We want nothing bad to happen. But that's like entry level stuff. If we can get them to their meetings on time and efficiently and smoothly, and they're able to do business on the way, they're able to increase their productivity. If they're able to get their photo shoot in or whatever it is, their autograph session, go meet their fans, get to their concert, do whatever the VIP does, then they can be more successful. And if we can enhance that, we are providing value. So we are using protection as the mechanism to get them what they want. And the more you do that, the more people see that you get it, that you are a professional in the industry, that you have excellence as a capability across the entire excellence spectrum. And then if you're working with other people and have strong relationships and they see that, you are providing value and are not jeopardizing their reputation, in fact, improving their reputation, you're getting this marketing that is more valuable than any paid advertisement you could get, than any social media post that is out there. Now, all that is great. The challenge becomes doing it over time because it's still work. And if you are so ingrained in the work and you are so connected in a small cycle, a small network of people, it can be difficult to stay relevant. I had a military officer once tell me after I came back from an overseas trip. He says, "You're only as great as your most recent tour, right? Or as the most recent tour." So I came back from a deployment. I was pretty high on myself, um, and giving people lots of advice, involved in training and things like that. And then all of a sudden, time went by, and that advice wasn't quite as relevant anymore because other tours had come back and they had experienced new, enemy tactics, techniques, and procedures, and then we've altered ours. So they had the most current ways of dealing with that threat. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to listen to these folks and hear what they have to say because their experience was a little bit different than mine. At the end of the day, you're only as great as your most recent experience or the most recent experience. And in executive protection, that becomes a challenge because you can get into these little team silos, and you could, if you're really good at what you do, you could do it for a very long time in this silo if you don't make deliberate effort to stay relevant with other networks. At some point in time, that work is probably going to dry up. Even if you're in the public sector, you're probably going to retire, get promoted, move on to another unit, something along those lines. People don't know who you are. You're going to have that much more work to do to get more opportunities. So you need to stay relevant, and you need to stay recently relevant. Okay. So you need to get some kind of exposure. Whatever that exposure is, uh, should be with the right people. Okay. So try and get exposure to decision makers or industry professionals or clients or all of the above. Okay. If you are excellent and you have relationships out there and people trust your reputation, and you might need to get more work somewhere down the road, what you don't want to do is be forgotten. So find ways, whatever that is, to get exposure in some form or another. And if you're coming from a, marketing perspective where you're trying to elevate yourself, then maybe find ways to differentiate yourself, right? Or differentiate your exposure. If you go back to that picture that I just had on the last slide, do you want to be, a nail in a sea of other nails, or do you want to be the gold nail in the sea of stainless steel nails? Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be extravagant or anything like that or do anything inappropriate, but you might need to find a way to differentiate yourself from other people in the marketing context. Okay. Otherwise, your ability to be successful might be hindered by the fact that you're very similar to everyone else. So, again, if I want to differentiate myself, I would focus on quality versus quantity. Put myself into quality networks or use quality exposure mechanisms as opposed to just spamming the internet or going to every, meetup or networking event that I can, right? You want to be able to provide substance in addition to a manageable and reasonable frequency. Now, one of the things is if you are starting from ground up with excellence and building your reputation and forging relationships, understand that that exposure takes time. In fact, in marketing, they often say it takes a minimum of 6 trusted exposures to a product or a brand before people will make a trusted purchase, right? And the more expensive that purchase is, the more time it may take or the more exposures it may take. At the end of the day, relevance and reputation go hand in hand. You want people talking about you, right? How often are they talking about you, and how recent are people talking about you? That is the reputation marketing that has made many people in the executive protection world so successful for so many years before social media and the internet. Now, time for a little bit of self-reflection. What are they saying? Because guess what? They're going to talk one way or another. Are they saying you're excellent? Are they saying you are somebody that they want to trust with their reputation and their clients? Or are they saying the opposite? Stay away from this person. They're a hand grenade. They will ruin your reputation. Keep as much distance as possible. So that might not be an easy exercise. In fact, what you might want to do is, do like a 360-degree survey where you get some feedback from people that that tells you what other people think about you. But I've done those before. I've been part of them. I've always been honest with people. My experience with the executive protection world is not a lot of people are open to that honest feedback and willing to hear it, or other people are too afraid to give it. So, at the end of the day, it's on you. Are people talking about you? Is it talking about you recently? And are they saying good things? If they are, then your brand is working and your method of marketing is working. Now, something that might help with that is some social media posts. And here are some places or some methods that I've found to be safe reputationally uh, in the executive protection world. So anything to do with training, whether you've taken it or you've provided it, that's fairly safe. Any articles of value, whether you've shared them, sharing other people's or you've written some. In fact, I would suggest to do both. If you are not if you are newer in the industry or you don't have a comfortable writing style or can't see a full landscape of a certain topic, then I would say share other people's articles that are good and tag them and give them that exposure. Okay. Industry tips, you see a lot of that out there. Fantastic. Great way to get some exposure, some reputation, some credibility. Okay. Job posts, super helpful. Sharing job posts out there, you're providing value. Same thing with equipment, any equipment, especially equipment that you have personally used, good, bad, or otherwise. Sharing reviews about that, great ways to get, some safe social posts. Anything to do with professional development, like books, podcasts, webinars, courses, all of those are fantastic. And showcasing others' excellence and accomplishments. We don't do enough of this in the executive protection industry. There are some great people out there doing great things. You come back off of a detail with somebody, you don't need to give any details about the detail, but just say, hey, I worked with so and so. They were fantastic. They were extremely professional. They provided all of this wonderful advance work. Like showcase other people. Don't pound your own chest out there, but showcase other people and their accomplishments. That's social proof, again, without breaching confidentiality, is super exceptional. Okay. And then, give testimonials and reviews or get them, right? If somebody, I've had it a few times with my training courses, people post something online, a very, you know, very nice professional testimonial or review about the program. Sometimes they add personal components in it, which is fantastic. And I share them. That helps me, but it also gives them exposure as well too. So super valuable. These kinds of things here, these are super valuable ways to post on social media and help you get that exposure if you need to use social media. If you don't need to use social media, then don't. If all those other things were working for you, okay, you're being excellent, have a strong reputation, you're staying relevant, you're building relationships, you might not need to put social posts out on social media. But doesn't hurt if you do it right. And these are ways that have pretty low risk. So some other techniques that you might think about when we're talking about mastering marketing, things that actually come from the marketing community, the marketing experts, is focused effort towards a target audience. So we talk about it a bit in the career success program about how to focus your effort, your goals, your SMART goals, towards getting a job. But the same thing applies to anything you are trying to do. If you're trying to market yourself to a certain audience, then learn as much about that audience as you can, and then focus your efforts towards that. And everything should be at a minimum visually appealing, but depending on the environment you're in, all senses need to be appealing. If you smell like crap, you know what? It doesn't matter how great you are at shooting or how great your advances are. If you stink in the truck, um, I'm sorry, you're not getting a phone call back. Okay. So, you know, Think about being appealing to all the senses whenever you're putting anything out. And don't be afraid to be authentic. In fact, the more authentic you are, the more real you are, within reason, let's call it disciplined authentic, okay? Uh, add adding that personal touch, sharing stories within reason without breaching confidentiality, the more people are going to engage, the more people are going to connect. There's a ton of science behind that authenticity, that personal component, and even sharing stories. Okay, people will remember you from the stories more than they will from the content that you share. So don't be afraid to do that. Again, as long as you avoid those critical errors. If you are able to elicit emotions and feelings in your marketing efforts, then that's going to resonate more with people as well too. I like to focus more on positive feelings, things like happiness, humor. Okay, as long as it's appropriate humor, appropriate for the audience. Sometimes it's self-deprecating humor. Take one of my courses, you know what I mean. Probably make more fun of myself than I do anybody else in certain things. Or if I'm teaching with colleagues, we go back and forth. Okay, that is valuable from a marketing perspective as well as a learning perspective. And be creative, unique, and interesting. People don't like boring. People don't want to be connected to boring. Boring is actually really important in executive protection. But from a marketing perspective, creative, unique, and interesting is valuable. So balance that. Okay. You don't want to be so creative, unique, and interesting when you are trying to uh, be viewed as, a gray man or an executive protection agent. But if you have creative, unique, and interesting elements that support the operation, that is super beneficial. So I would never wear like a crazy suit when I'm going out to be work in executive protection. I want those subdued colors. I want that subtlety, right? We go back to the fundamentals. But that doesn't mean that I can't come up with a creative format for something like advance report or site survey or different things like that, right? So there's ways you can find to be creative while staying in the box of acceptable for executive protection. And that's where I like to focus on staying positive and professional. So before you do anything new, before you do any kind of marketing, make sure you review it. Put that lens on it is this excellent? Does this help advance my brand properly? Is it showcasing me as a professional? How is it going to be perceived by clients? How is it going to be perceived by other people? And don't forget to review those critical errors to avoid. And then we got to do this over time. Okay. Success is a marathon, it is not a sprint. Okay. There is no easy marketing solution in any industry, but especially in executive protection, that is going to make you absolutely successful overnight. It just doesn't happen. You have to build up your portfolio incrementally. You have to continuously strive for that excellence. Take the training courses, go to the conferences, read the books, get a bunch of online courses because they're great ways of taking new information in with low investment, low risk. Don't even have to travel for them. Okay. Incrementally build your skill set and then get yourself onto operations and demonstrate your excellence and be excellent consistently over time. And if it gets hard, guess what? Persevere. You're going to learn, adapt, and evolve from every experience if you're able to put in that self reflection. If you're able to adapt, okay? Success is simple, but it's not easy. You've got to give it time. And if it gets hard, I heard this saying here a couple weeks ago. I actually saw it on social media. I wish I could remember where I saw it so I could give that person credit for it. But they said, today's resilience is tomorrow's strength. And it is 100% true. Okay. So it's not easy getting into executive protection and showcasing yourself. And even if you've been in it for a while, the industry is constantly evolving. Culture is constantly evolving. And if you haven't evolved with it, it's going to be a challenge. But it is possible because tons of people are succeeding in this industry, and this is the time. The opportunities are more plentiful than I've ever seen before. So, focus on all these fundamentals that we've talked about. Go back and watch this again if you need to. Take notes, whatever you need to do. Come up with a blueprint for your own success. If something doesn't work, learn, adapt, and evolve. And if you're having a hard time doing that, reach out to a mentor and a coach that can help you do that. Now, as I come to close, I want to share with you this example from social media that really reinforces a lot of the points that were covered in this presentation. Um, and I am using it with the originator's permission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it in case you're not able to see it on the screen, depending on the size of screen that you are listening to this on or watching this on. So we'll start with, I'll go read through it and then we'll unpack it a little bit. So it's from a gentleman by the name of Keith Ortiz, and he starts with, fellow practitioners. I have some exciting information for you. Since I am providing free headshots at IPSB, I've received numerous messages from colleagues asking what would be appropriate to wear for the photos. After all, you have your choice of a free headshot or a full body picture. My go to answer was what you would expect: dark suit, red tie, black shoes. I could not have been more wrong. I reached out to Mr. Michael Miorana, style and fashion guru, and I apologize, Michael, if I pronounced your name wrong. Style and fashion guru, to get his take on what is appropriate fashion wear, even for something as simple as a headshot. I learned quite a bit from Michael. This is what he said: styles are cyclical. What was appropriate in certain circles last year or a few years ago may not be today. The darker black suit, for instance, my original recommendation in brackets, Michael states that the dark suit look, even in our industry, is on the decline. Michael, who has a background in fashion and business, states that the current trend is business casual. So now you're thinking, I already knew that. However, business casual is not what you may think it is. It is not a blazer, pressed jeans, and a button down shirt. That look is just casual. Business casual involves a nice pair of trousers or khakis, a muted collar, traditional button down shirt with a point collar, and a sports coat, not a blazer. Didn't know there was a difference between a blazer and a sport coat. Neither did I. The difference between the two is that the blazer typically has silver, brass, or shiny type buttons and is more appropriate in a more formal setting, whereas a sport coat has muted, matching color, or contrasting buttons. Michael says a business casual look, even for full body pictures, is completely appropriate today, even on the celebrity side. A nice pair of khakis, which come in many colors, a soft muted color shirt, start to move away from crisp white, a contrasting sport coat, and a nice pair of shoes that also contrast is the most current look. The shoes should not be penny loafers or deck shoes, and get this, a lace up with a white rubber sole adds style and comfort and is absolutely fine. No tie is needed, but the shirt should be definitely be a muted collar. Think lavenders, pinks, and even muted patterns could work. The shirt should also have a barrel cuff, stay away from cufflinks unless a formal event, and pointed collars that sit just inside the lapel of the sport coat and not on top or under it. There was a whole lot more to our conversation and many more do's and don'ts that I don't have room for here. So here is my suggestion. You can follow Michael on his LinkedIn page like I do. So, what do you say, fellow practitioners? Who is going to make the leap and bring a strong fashion game to their headshots at IPSB? I look forward to seeing you all there. And then you can see the comments. You can see some of the comments are 16 comments, 25 engagements. And Keith has tagged Michael in the comments as well. So let's unpack this a little bit. What a great post that's a little bit longer than you might expect to get some great exposure from, but it's pretty well done. So let's unpack it. So Keith's brand. So I know Keith. I don't know him well. We've met at conferences. We've had discussions. Been following him online for a while. I can tell you Keith's brand is about quality and being helpful to other people. He's provided some excellent advice in here, and if you didn't pick up on it as well, Keith is just a dude. He's just an EP agent who has sponsored the headshots for the IPSB Close Protection Conference coming up. So if you don't think that resonates with quality and being helpful, I don't know what does. Excellence. Okay, so we talked about excellence quite a bit. He's given advice. He knows the industry needs are aware. Okay, so he's thinking about other people. He's giving excellent advice, and he is aware of what is going on in the industry in relation to the Close Protection Conference. He's aware of what EP agents likely need to know. Okay. And I'm also going to suggest that his writing ability, there's a few mistakes in there, but it is social media. But his writing ability is well done. He's sentence structure, paragraphs, all of those kinds of things. He's got a personal component to it. He's telling a story, a little bit of showcasing his own flaws as well in there. Like that's good quality writing. Okay, value. He is providing quality, useful advice focused on a target audience and focused on helping people. It's relevant. It is applicable to the EP audience and IPSB attendees, and it's making Keith relevant by posting it. Now, anybody that is going to the IPSB Close Protection Conference that saw this post and potentially this presentation should go up to Keith and say, hey, great post. Or even if you didn't agree with it, there's certain, I'm not a fashion guy. I thought it was great advice. There's certain things in the post that I wouldn't do that don't represent me, but I'll go up to Keith and say, hey, thank you for that post. That was a great post. You shared some very useful information. And it got me thinking about, my brand and how I'm going to present myself at the conference and things like that. So don't judge what I wear when I get there. I'm not as much of a style guy as Michael or Keith, but I'm going to do my best. Okay. So I'm definitely not going to wear something inappropriate. Okay. It will represent my brand well. So great stuff. On brand, excellence, value, total relevance. Okay. But there's more. Marketing. These quality personal photos. Okay. He used his own photos. If you look on the screen, those are actually quality personal photos that he took. So these are, some of his clothing. And I would suggest you go follow Keith and find the post and look at it yourself because there are some great suggestions in there. So he used his own photos and they were high quality and it visually added to his message. In fact, I would suggest that I saw the pictures before I read the text. Now, from a relationships perspective, fantastic. He tagged and endorsed Michael. He is building a professional relationship by sharing Michael's advice, not as his own, but as Michael's advice, and then sending people to him after the fact. Okay, so giving credit where credit is due and forwarding people in the right direction. Fantastic. Okay, I can tell you what I did. I didn't know Michael. I connected with Michael. He connected with me, and we had a little conversation directly through the direct messaging app of LinkedIn. Trust. This was long form writing, which creates long form context. The more long form you have when it's written in a positive and professional manner can build trust with the audience that takes the time to read it. You also get some social proof by the likes, comments, and shares, depending on who they are. All very important to building a brand and marketing. And you also get exposure to the audiences of the engaged. So everybody that liked or comment, uh, this will now show up in their display. And if it's valuable enough and personable enough, it might show up in their conversations with other people. Because it was so good that I thought that I would use it in this training. So other people might be taking it to other places. That is going to be outstanding marketing for Keith, but also for the winners that share it with other people. If somebody says, hey, I found this great advice that could help you, and give it to somebody else, even if it's not their advice, you are still providing value. And that is still professional marketing in our world. Time. Okay. You can't see this in the post, other than the types of engagements and the people that have engaged with it. But this is a common theme to Keith's posts and his actions over time. So this isn't the first time he's done something like this. In fact, Keith is quite regularly posting great advice and taking great actions. I think at last year's IPSB conference, he sponsored two people to attend a training course. There's like an auction or an essay. There was an essay contest. So people had to write an essay to get an opportunity to win uh, a trip. The cost of attending a course. Keith paid for it. So, fantastic, great human being, which is another reason why I wanted to include him in this video, because he's such a positive influence on the rest of the industry. And I think we need more of that. So, reputation as well. Okay, speaking of the time and all of those actions and this post and all the other things, is Keith has a positive, helpful, professional, and humble component to his reputation. Now, I can honestly say I have never worked with Keith in an EP capacity, but I would suggest from the people that I know who have and the things that I've seen him post online and the conversations that we have had at conferences that I would trust him to be able to work with clients. Okay. And that is also validated by the people that get engaged, people that engage on these comments. Not saying that they would trust him to do that, but it's definitely a better starting point than nowhere. There would still be a vetting process, of course, but it's definitely a much better starting point than nothing. Okay, and now last but not least, a little bit of what the exchange between Keith and I. So you can see on the screen, hey Keith, great post on the clothing for the headshots. I'm doing a presentation on branding and marketing in EP. Do you mind if I use a screenshot of your post and reference you in the presentation? Your one post supports so many of my points in the training, which I think everybody watching would agree that his post does do that. So I sent that to Keith, direct message, wanting his permission. Even though he put it out publicly, I was going to use it in a different format. It's his content. I wanted to make sure he was okay with it. Well, before he responds, what does Keith do? He views my profile, basically seeing if maybe if he knows me, if he remembers me from the conference, if my profile stands up to the sniff test of somebody he wants to attach his name to. I guess it does, because he responds to us, Justin, I would be honored. Please do. So Get permission before you use other people's things, even if it is publicly available like that. And great job on Keith, doing a little check to see my profile before blindly agreeing to it. Okay. So I hope that example helped reinforce all of this messaging on branding and marketing in executive protection. It's a very complicated topic, but at the end of the day, the more we simplify it and we be direct, the easier it's going to be to obtain. So there it is. Success is simple, okay, but not always easy. Be positive, focus on that excellence first and always, and provide value to other people. Value from their perspective, not value from your perspective. Okay. Build trusted relationships with people and foster that positive reputation. Okay. Spend more time focusing on quality than quantity as far as relationship building. And don't go at it with I need to build a positive reputation. Like, don't be super aggressive. Just be yourself, but be the best version of yourself around other people. And and if they're good people, they'll start to wear off on you and you'll wear off on them. Okay? So you will incrementally move in the right direction. Don't be afraid to stay relevant and showcase your journey properly. You need to get some exposure to other people in various formats. If it's online, it's going to be a wider audience, but it might not necessarily be as depth as you need to. So don't be afraid to meet folks online in a professional context and then have those direct messaging conversations. And then give it time. Be patient. Nothing great, no success ever happens overnight. Okay? You have to be resilient. You have to work at it a little bit every day. But at some point in time, you'll look back at where you started and see all the things that you've accomplished, especially if you follow the advice in this presentation and my many other presentations. Okay. And avoid critical errors. But if you do make mistakes, learn from them. Self reflection is so important, and making adjustments is so important. Don't be afraid to go back to the presentation and the component on critical errors, write them down, review everything before you put it out there because, actions, especially online or different audiences, are kind of like a bullet. Once you pull that trigger, you can't get it back in the gun. And so, best to take the same approach we do to everything, a left of bang protective, low risk measure, and plan stuff out and prepare it ahead of time. Don't do things emotionally or haphazardly. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you found value in it, please share it with your friends and colleagues and in your network. It will obviously help me, but giving people great advice and connecting them to value will also help elevate you and increase your reputation. Okay, as long as it doesn't suck, and I hope you don't think it sucks. I mentioned at the beginning, this program is connected to or is a nice supplement to our executive and close protection career success course. So, highly recommend if you haven't taken that course, you go to specvip.ca and find it. Talk about the career landscape, career success, success foundation, some pillars of development and success, bit on networking, some more information on online best practices. We dive into resumes and cover letters, help you with interviews, getting and keeping work beyond what I've shared in this presentation, and even more. And if you're watching this presentation and you're not a member of the Close Protection Development Group, first of all, why not? Second of all, you need to. So the Close Protection Development Group is a mentoring and coaching program that runs through the VIP Local Asset Network. If you join up with a pro account, it's relatively low investment. You go to the Close Protection development group page. Every month I produce a training video like this. This one is produced for that group. Okay, and then we have regular discussions on it. Right now, there's over 30 training videos on there that you can access. It's There's also some high quality networking that happens, coaching and mentoring, and full access to other resources on the platform. So, highly recommend it, and hopefully, I will see you there. And if not, if you enjoyed this presentation, reach out, send me a message. Next time I see you in person, tell me about it. Uh, Even if you didn't enjoy it, tell me as well. I'd love to hear the feedback, and hopefully I can. If you're not a member of the Close Protection Development Group, that you will be eventually, and we can talk about many of these other discussions that are on the platform. So, thanks very much, folks. Keep developing and be safe out there.